Here I shall demonstrate the installation of Atomic Fishbowl, which as you will see is extremely straightforward. The first thing we'll do is create a VM to run Fishbowl locally on my Mac. This will be very similar for VMware ESXi or Workstation, and this should give you an idea of what to do. We'll select CentOS 7 64-bit as our OS type. We shall choose Customize Settings, and we'll give our OS guest a name. Let's remove some of the unnecessary hardware from the VM, like the webcam, the printer, disconnect Bluetooth, and remove the sound card. Let's set the VM to use 4 gigs of memory and 4 CPU cores. And set the hard disk to 25 gigabytes. Fishbowl will refuse to install if it's any smaller than this. We'll just confirm that synchronized time is set in advance, which it is. In this case, I'll set the network to bridged mode so that it's on the local LAN, but this is really dependent on your environment. And we'll set the DVD drive to use the product ISO and connect it. Now our VM is configured, so let's start it. You'll see the ISO boot menu. You should usually choose the first option to use the traditional nicknaming convention of ET80, unless you prefer the new, quote, predictable style of the newer Linux distros, which I personally can't stand. The installer will start, and with a clean VM there should be no interaction until the very end. This should only take a couple of minutes. I'll speed it up here for your convenience. At the very end, you'll be asked if you'd like to drop into a shell. Just hit enter to choose no and reboot. Once you see the login at first boot, you'll need to wait a couple of minutes for post-installation tasks to complete, which is really the Atomic Fishbowl containers provisioning themselves. You'll see what that looks like. This is about a minute and a half compressed into 10 seconds. Once the console messages cease, log in with the username root and the password kentech0. Type in the command nmtui and set the VM's host name. Then set the networking configuration by editing connection ETH0. When you set the IP address, ensure you enter it in CIDR notation, or it will get a /32 subnet mask. Then hit OK. At the end, I like to deactivate it and reactivate it for good measure. Those who will be rebooting this probably isn't strictly necessary. Now quit and issue the command systemctl space reboot from the shell. The VM will now reboot. Once it's back up, go to your browser and type https:// and the hostname or IP of your Atomic Fishbowl host. Accept the certificate error, and then accept the license agreement. The login credentials are admin and kentech0. On the first login, you'll be taken to the collections screen, but with no collections to find. Close the window and go into the Global Preferences at the top right-hand side of the page. Once in the Preferences, we need to configure the product to use NetWitness. Click RSA NetWitness under Enabled Service Types, then click the RSA NetWitness tab. Now enter the URL of your NetWitness user interface, including the https://. I also like to bump the rolling query delay to 2 minutes as a starting point. You may need even longer for your environment, depending on how long it takes for sessions to roll out of the assembler, get passed, and then written. Lastly, we need to define a REST API endpoint for Fishbowl to pull data from. For you, this will typically be either a concentrator or a broker service. You'll need credentials for a local API account defined on the endpoint, which may be different than the credential you use to log into NetWitness. This account may need to be created by a NetWitness administrator. In my example, I have an indexing decoder in my lab, so I'm using port 50104. For a concentrator, the REST API port will be 50105, and for a broker, 50103. Now click OK to save the settings, and go back into Collections by clicking the link in the upper left-hand corner. Then click New NetWitness Collection. Near the bottom of the Create Collection dialog, click the plus sign under Select a NetWitness service. Then enter the host name, API account credentials, REST port, SSL setting, and investigation device ID for the service which you'll be adding. I'll show you how to get this in a moment. Then click the Test button. If your settings are correct, you'll get a thumbs up. Then click Save. To find your investigation device ID, go into your NetWitness web interface and go into Investigation and Navigate. You should get a list of services to investigate. If not, click the Select Service button. Double-click on the service which you're adding to Fishbowl. Notice that the URL changes. The investigation device ID is the number just before /navigate/values. That's the value you want to add to your API endpoint settings. You'll still get results if you don't set this properly, but doing so allows you to drill back into sessions in NetWitness. That's all it takes to install and set up Atomic Fishbowl. If you should encounter any problems with the installation, do feel free to get in touch with me personally at tim.underhay@knowledgekta.com.